Images of damaged buildings, cars on fire, and law enforcement officers in riot gear have taken over national outlets and social media as people across the country continue to voice their outrage with the death of George Floyd. But those pictures only tell one part of the story. While some protests did turn violent, many remained peaceful. Some even led to inspiring moments and glimmers of hope. And tonight, we want to share some that happened right here in Arkansas. Yesterday, protesters made their way to 12th Street, where they spoke with officers at the police station there. After what one person described as a passionate dialogue, officers prayed over the protesters. A similar scene in front of City Hall this morning, where Little Rock Police Chief Keith Humphrey met with protesters outside to listen and answer their questions. He also prayed with the group before leaving. And in Conway, a photographer captured a powerful moment you see right here between a protester and police officer. Ian Lyle shared photos of fist bumps and hugs from yesterday's protest on Facebook. He says the two groups were in unity as the officers protected the protesters. Lyle hopes his photos bring the good side of this fight to light. It was moments like those that led to this one. This is Renee Sanders and Officer Sullivan. Sanders asked the Conway officer to stand with her and as others protested. She responded saying, "If I walk, will you be my barrier?" Sanders said she broke down into tears and Sullivan hugged her and told her, quote, "I hear you. I'm with you." It's stories like these that remind us why these protests are so important and the message behind them. If you have been at one of these protests and seen a great moment like those, please share it with us. We don't want the message of moving towards change to get lost.
Welcome back to my house. Let's talk about the message that we're seeing behind all the protests around the country. It's a message that can get covered up by the violence and the destruction and the arrests. So let's change the focus by taking a look at video of last night's protest in Conway. And we get pictures from the police department, pictures taken by Ian Lyle, along with a story about this demonstration. The agency says about 10 protesters gathered at the corner of Harkrider and Oak Street last night. The crowd started to grow, and a few hours later, about 300 people were there. The protesters and several police officers then marched to the shopping center on East Oak Street. Along the way, officers got the chance to talk to protesters and to listen. Those conversations led to the officers standing and kneeling with protesters in solidarity. The department called it a, quote, extraordinary night. It was a similar scene in ARKADELPHIA, where the Clark County NAACP organized a peaceful protest last night. Hundreds of protesters and officers marched from Gennesaret Baptist Church to the future home of the town's Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Memorial Park. And there, the group heard from several speakers, including the mayor, the chief of police, and community leaders. And finally, a protest in Bentonville provided an extraordinary moment of unity. Photographer Jason Benson was at Monday's protest in Northwest Arkansas and captured the story of togetherness. He says this man went to the protest to protect the Confederate monument at the center of town. The statue has been vandalized during protests in the past, and he wanted to keep an eye on things. Protesters confronted him. Arguments broke out, but they eventually found common ground. They all agree that police brutality needs to end, and that's when it happened. The protesters asked him to abandon his post and stand with them. They promised the statue would not be harmed and that the protest was bigger than that. He was reluctant and only wanted to be a silent observer. But then something else happened. The man told the crowd that if he was going to join them, he wanted to do more than just grab a hand and step down. He wanted to jump in, and that's exactly what he did. The moment reminds us that while we may not agree on everything, it's going to take all of us to make real change, and sometimes it starts with a leap of faith. We're back after this.
Cities across Arkansas, both big and small, are taking a stand against racial injustice in the wake of Floyd's death. Here are a few we've seen just in the last day or so. People in Jacksonville met at the Nixon Library last night to protest, and they were joined by several members of the Jacksonville Police Department, including the interim chief. People in Maumelle held a similar demonstration last night. Dozens gathered together with police and city leaders. Officers listened to the protesters and then gave out hot dogs and water. The mayor who was there said he was proud to see the group peacefully protesting in support of the idea that everyone is created equal, regardless of their race, adding, quote, "It doesn't get much more American than that." And check this out. These are pictures from a protest in Monticello, where people gathered in the center of the town to honor Floyd's memory and rally against racial injustice. Severino Torrio Jr. captured the moving moments of unity, and we are honored to share them with you. After the crowd cleared, this happened. Gabriella walked up to Trooper Jimmy Plyer with the Arkansas State Police and asked to take this picture with him. It's protests like these and stories like this that can't get lost, and we promise to keep sharing them with you. As we come to the end of a week filled with protests, chants, and signs, we want to share one more with you. Check this out. This is Arkansas Tech University student Eric Givens. Last Friday, he went out to a busy Russellville intersection and held this sign up. It reads, "Love one another." He returned to the intersection for 5 days, drawing the attention of social media and several people passing by. Some even joined him. And at one point, Eric had as many as 8 people rallying behind him at that intersection. It may not seem like a lot when you look at crowds at the Capitol, but that's not important. All that matters is his message. Love one another. If we can all get behind that idea, maybe, just maybe, we'll be able to move forward and make real change. We'll be back after this.